Hey, welcome to my Warframes Where They Are Now series, a little series I've had brewing in the back of my mind since the early days of Warframe, quote unquote. I'm going to put this little intro at the beginning of every video in this series. If you've heard this once or more, feel free to skip it. This is just my opinion and is not guaranteed to be fact. Remember, with Warframe, everyone plays at least a little different from each other. That's why there's 52 frames as of making this intro, of course. That being said, I do plan on being as objective as I can with this series. But bias will always be a potential problem and will definitely shine through in certain episodes, if not all. Now, that being said, I hope you enjoy the series. May 20th, 2024. I'm actually recording the audio for this on the following Friday, the 24th. And man, is it hot. Oh my. At least for Connecticut this time of year. It's pretty hot. Forgive me if you can hear the fan in the background. I think it's far enough away that you shouldn't be able to hear it. I also have it on the low setting, but if you can, my bad. Today we're talking about Khora Prime, Miss Whips and Chains. Not exactly a favorite of mine, but she's not bad. Let's jump right in. Base stats on a level 30 Khora Prime are 465 health, 465 shields, 345 armor, 225 energy, and 1.05 sprint speed. Khora's passive is she has an extra cat hiding in her pocket. As well as when that cat's active, she gets an additional 15% speed boost. Venari has a 45-second recovery time if she dies. But, to be honest, she's actually pretty tanky, so you don't lose her too often. Hell, even before the rework, it was rare that I'd lose her. Khora Prime's first ability is Whipclaw. As the name implies, she whacks the enemies with a whip. It has a pretty good, lengthwise range, as well as at the end of it has a burst of damage, which also has a decent amount of range on it, which does help hit a few enemies with it, which is quite nice. Both of which are affected by range mods, which makes a lot of sense, but hey, you never know. Has a okay amount of damage by itself, but similar to many of the other pseudo-exalted weapons, it has its stats boosted by your melee weapons, and it can do quite a bit of damage if you have a weapon set up for it, making this quite the decent first ability, if I do say so myself. It also has an augment, that being Accumulating Whipclaw, and that's when you hit 3 enemies, it grants a 35% stacking damage bonus to following Whipclaws. However, the bonus does decay after 10 seconds, so be wary of that. You gotta go absolutely ballistic with this thing to keep that going. Granted, it's not that hard to do, especially considering once you get to Steel Path, the enemies do pile up quite a lot. Her second ability is Ensnare. She wraps an enemy in wire, which stops him from moving. After a little bit, it decides to reach out, grab a few more enemies, and pull them in. It's quite nice in that regard as a grouping ability. I personally prefer pull, but this does have something that pull does not. That being your Whipclaw. Obviously, you hit everybody that's connected to the Ensnare because, range. But in addition to that, it can also cause it to grab even more enemies as well, because it refreshes it. Ensnare has a pretty decent amount of range, as well as a very fair duration, all things considered. It actually lasts quite a while. And a propagation delay of 0.5 seconds, which actually can be boosted. So bear that in mind. Her third ability is Venari. This is a command mode for the cat. You can either set her to attack, protect, or heal mode. And if she's dead, you can go ahead and use it to revive her instantly for some energy. I usually either keep it in attack or heal. Attack mode for general use, heal mode specifically for Archon hunts. This is the ability that I've helmet off on my non-STP build. I only have one other build. We'll get into that in my build section, as well as, what I use her for section. But yeah, it also has an augment, that being Venari Bodyguard, and that's Venari dies in Khora's place. Respawn timer is increased to 150 seconds. Killing enemies decreases the timer by 4 seconds, though. I mean, this is great if you want that extra bit of survivability, that's perfectly fine. as long as you are okay with sacrificing animals for personal gain. I couldn't say that with a straight face. No, but in all seriousness, though, this actually is a good survivability tool. Kinda fucked up to think about, but overall, yeah, no, it's fantastic to have. I don't use it myself, mainly because I don't usually take her into Steel Path that much. Granted, it would be nice for that. But yeah, no, it's a perfectly valid option as far as that goes. Especially since you can decrease the timer by killing stuff. Her fourth ability is Strangle Dome. She creates a cage that grabs enemies and hangs onto them. The nice thing with this is it's actually a pretty good CC, which we'll get into more when we talk about what I use her for. But in addition to that, you can hit the cage with your Whipclaw, and it does damage to everything within it, which is even more nice. Actually works quite well for that. But it has a pretty good range for what it is. And it has an even greater grab radius, which is always good. And it has a fantastic duration, all things considered. Mine sits about 50 seconds with my build, so you can get a pretty good amount of time on it, which is great. And it does have an augment. This one is a pretty popular augment too, might I add. That being Pilfering Strangle Dome. Enemies held in Strangle Dome have a 65% chance of dropping additional loot. Matter of fact, for a long time, I did have a farming build for her, mainly because of the fact that one of the people I play with that I played with a lot, primarily used Necros, so I figured that way we could get the two different types, but from what I gather, that no longer works. I don't know for certain, because when I heard about that change, I was already after I was already done farming pretty much everything I'd need in this game. Aside from when a new frame comes out, but even then, usually it's just freaking Argon these days. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. But anyway, this is a pretty nice augment to have. I find farming augments kind of funny, but they're always good to have. I feel like it's actually a pretty important part of the game, especially for newer players that don't have like a million of every resource. As for my build, well, as mentioned a little bit ago, I have two builds. My primary build is high duration, high range, no strength. This would be my build for my Strangle Dome. Mainly use this particular build for CC, which we'll get into a little bit more in a minute. But that's pretty good for that. My other build would be Whip It Good. It's my Whipclaw build. High strength, which honestly just makes sense. Middle of the road range and some lower duration. I would like to get a bit more range on her, but I also don't want to sacrifice strength. So I'd probably have to wait till I either do Archon Shards or they released another mod for it, which honestly I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Wouldn't be against it either. But anyways, this one works pretty well. I don't use her too often, but I will say I do tend to use this build when I'm just kind of screwing around. I also have a Soma Cord build over there. We'll talk about that one of these days. It's a long story. Soma Cord on Fortuna is not fun, we'll just put it that way. But, yeah. So how's she perform for Duviri? Well, honestly not bad. I don't pick her very often, because usually when she shows up I usually get like Equinox or Saren or something. But every once in a while I do end up getting her. It's actually part of why I have the Whip It Good, build anyway, is because I like to use that for Duviri. It's a lot of fun with that. But yeah, honestly, she does do pretty well. She's not anything like spectacular for it, but she does stay alive for quite a while, and Strangle Dome does act as a pretty good CC for that as well. I will say the only parts I do tend to get stuck on with her is, funny enough, defense missions, only because of, when you get far into Duviri and you start getting like nothing but Eximus basically? Yeah, that. So as for what I use Khora for, well, let's get right into that. So, back when I was doing Steel Path, I needed to get through the Steel Path interceptions, and no one really wanted to help me with that. It's a bitch and a half to do solo because, well, it's interception. Granted, anything below Steel Path interception is honestly not that bad. You can do most of those solo without any issues and summons and whatnot. This was also before we had Call, and this was also before I had my crewmate summon. You may be able to see the issue there. Either way, I was looking up ways to, do Steel Path Interception by myself, and I stumbled upon a video. I can't remember the name of the creator. If I find it, I'll drop a link in the comment section. Even if I don't find it before I upload this, I will do that. But it actually showed me a build where you could actually solo Interception because of the fact that you could cast 2 Strangle Domes. So I ended up copying that build for my Steel Path build, which is actually what I have here. And I did end up modifying it a little bit because I play a little differently, but it worked really well, and I was able to get through all the Steel Path interceptions. And funny enough, that build also works for interception on Archon hunts, which is, I mainly throw Venari to heal on that just because you might as well have the extra help there. It's not a lot, but it does help. But yeah, no, that's why I have that, and that's what I use her for. But that's also pretty much all I use her for. I have nothing against Khora. She's not bad at all, but she doesn't really fit my playstyle. But either way, thank you all for watching. Let's go ahead and spin that wheel. And as always, have a great day.